Right now, as you're watching this video, your brain is making a decision that could literally kill you someday. And the scariest part? You have no idea it's happening. 3 Japanese tourists found this out the hard way when they followed their GPS directions straight into a bay, nearly drowning. A Belgian woman trusted her navigation system so completely that she drove 900 miles in the wrong direction and kept driving for days, even as everything around her clearly showed she was lost. But here's what's truly terrifying. These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a psychological glitch that every single one of us carries in our brains, a glitch that makes us blindly trust machines, even when they're obviously wrong. Scientists call it automation bias, and it's quietly reshaping human civilization in ways we're only beginning to understand. By the end of this video, you'll never look at your phone, your GPS, or any AI system the same way again. Because what I'm about to show you isn't just about technology. It's about how technology is rewiring the most fundamental part of what makes us human, our ability to think for ourselves. The science of surrendering control. Let me start with the hard science, because what researchers have discovered about automation bias is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. In 2022, Oxford academic published a comprehensive study that revealed something remarkable about human psychology. We have an innate tendency to uncritically abdicate our decision-making to automation. But here's the kicker. This isn't a conscious choice. It's a cognitive reflex that happens below the level of our awareness, like blinking or breathing. The research published in peer-reviewed journals and backed by institutions like the National Center for Biotechnology Information shows that automation bias operates on 2 distinct levels. First, there are what scientists call errors of omission, times when we fail to notice that an automated system has missed something important. Think of a doctor who doesn't catch a diagnosis because they're relying too heavily on AI diagnostic tools. But then there are the truly dangerous ones, errors of commission. These happen when we actively follow automated advice that contradicts our own judgment, our training, and sometimes even obvious sensory evidence. This is where people drive into lakes, pilots shut down the wrong engines, and medical professionals make decisions that can cost lives. What makes this phenomenon so insidious is that it affects everyone. But counterintuitively, it affects highly educated, intelligent people even more severely. The very expertise that makes someone good at their job can make them more susceptible to automation bias, not less. Why? Because experts have been trained to value systematic, data-driven decision-making. So when a machine presents them with systematic, data-driven recommendations, their expert brains essentially say, "This is exactly the kind of input I'm supposed to trust." The University of Washington conducted a systematic analysis of what they termed death by GPS incidents. Yes, that's actually the scientific term. They found patterns that revealed just how powerful this cognitive bias really is. People didn't just make one bad turn and realize their mistake. They continued following GPS directions for hours, sometimes days, even as road conditions deteriorated, even as they passed signs warning of danger, even as their own common sense screamed that something was wrong. One of the most haunting cases involved a German couple who followed their GPS onto a construction site, got their car stuck, and then spent hours trying to dig it out, rather than questioning whether the GPS might be wrong. They were found the next morning, still digging, still trusting the machine over their own increasingly desperate situation. But here's where the science gets really disturbing. Neurological research shows that when we're interacting with automated systems, specific regions of our brain that govern critical thinking actually become less active. It's as if the presence of automation creates a kind of cognitive sedation. Our brains literally start to shut down the very processes that are supposed to keep us safe. The counterargument and its limits. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, wait, but automation saves lives too. GPS has helped millions of people navigate safely. AI assists doctors in making better diagnoses. Technology isn't the enemy here. It's human error that's the problem. And you're absolutely right about the benefits. There's substantial evidence that automated systems, when functioning correctly, do improve outcomes across virtually every field where they're implemented. Medical AI helps detect cancers that human doctors miss. Navigation systems do guide millions of people safely to their destinations every day. Aviation automation has contributed to making flying safer than driving. The counterargument goes deeper, though. Some researchers argue that automation bias isn't actually a flaw in human psychology. It's an adaptive response to our technological environment. After all, in most cases, automated systems are more accurate than human judgment. GPS is usually right. Medical AI usually provides valuable insights. So maybe what we call automation bias is actually just intelligent pattern recognition. Our brains learning that machines tend to be more reliable than our own often flawed intuitions. There's also the efficiency argument. In our complex, fast-paced world, we simply don't have the time or cognitive resources to second-guess every automated recommendation. If you had to manually verify every GPS route, double-check every spell-check correction, and independently validate every AI suggestion, you'd be paralyzed by decision fatigue before lunch. But here's where this seemingly reasonable counter-argument falls apart, and where the real danger lies hidden. The research reveals that automation bias doesn't just make us trust machines when they're right, it makes us trust them even when obvious warning signs indicate they're wrong, even when our own expertise contradicts them, even when physical reality is screaming that something is terribly off. The Belgian woman who drove 900 miles in the wrong direction? Her GPS wasn't malfunctioning, it was recalculating based on her missed turns, trying to find new routes to her destination. But instead of recognizing that she'd made an error and needed to turn around, she kept trusting the constant recalculations, driving deeper and deeper into unfamiliar territory. And here's the really chilling part. As AI systems become more sophisticated and more integrated into our daily lives, the opportunities for these catastrophic failures multiply exponentially. We're not just talking about GPS anymore. We're talking about AI systems that influence what we buy, who we date, what news we read, what medical treatments we receive, and increasingly, what we think. The deeper truth about human-machine relationships. So where does this leave us? Are we doomed to be slaves to our machines, or should we reject automation entirely and return to some kind of pre-digital existence? The truth, as always, lies in a more nuanced understanding of what's really happening here. Automation bias isn't just about technology, it's about a fundamental shift in how humans relate to authority and expertise. For thousands of years, authority came from other humans, parents, teachers, leaders, experienced practitioners. Our brains evolved complex social mechanisms for evaluating when to trust authority and when to question it. But machines present us with a completely new type of authority, one that our ancient psychology wasn't designed to handle. Automated systems don't show uncertainty. They don't display emotions. They don't exhibit the social cues that usually help us calibrate trust. When your GPS says turn left, it doesn't sound worried or hesitant. It sounds absolutely confident, even when it's absolutely wrong. What we're witnessing isn't just a technology problem or a psychology problem, it's an evolution problem. We're the first generation of humans trying to navigate a world where non-human intelligence makes recommendations about everything from the route to work to the person we should marry. Our Stone Age brains are doing their best to adapt to a digital age reality, but the adaptation is happening faster than our psychological evolution can keep up. But here's the fascinating part. Awareness of automation bias actually reduces its power over us. Studies show that when people are specifically trained to recognize and counteract automation bias, they become significantly better at maintaining appropriate skepticism while still benefiting from automated assistance. The solution isn't to reject technology. That's neither possible nor desirable in our interconnected world. Instead, it's to develop what researchers call calibrated trust. The ability to trust automated systems appropriately, neither blindly accepting their recommendations nor reflexively rejecting them. This means learning to recognize the situations where automation bias is most likely to kick in, when we're stressed, when we're in unfamiliar territory, when the automated system is giving us information that conflicts with our own observations, but we desperately want that information to be correct. But this raises some profound questions that I think we all need to grapple with. If our brains are naturally wired to trust machines more than our own judgment, what happens to human intuition, creativity, and independent thinking? Are we inadvertently breeding these capabilities out of ourselves?
And here's an even deeper question. As AI systems become more sophisticated, will they learn to exploit our automation bias deliberately? We already know that algorithms are designed to influence our behavior in subtle ways. What happens when they get better at making us trust them unconditionally? Perhaps most importantly, if the next generation grows up with AI companions, AI tutors, and AI advisors from birth, will they develop any resistance to automation bias at all? Or will we create a generation that's fundamentally unable to think independently? And finally, the question that keeps me up at night. In a world where AI systems can process vastly more information than any human, make calculations we could never perform, and sometimes genuinely know better than we do, when is automation bias actually the rational response? How do we tell the difference between wise deference to superior intelligence and dangerous abdication of human judgment? Remember those 3 tourists I mentioned at the beginning? The ones who drove into the bay? Here's what haunts me about their story. They weren't stupid people. They weren't reckless. They were just humans, trusting a system that had probably guided them safely hundreds of times before. In that moment of trusting their GPS over their own eyes, they became a perfect metaphor for our entire species right now. Intelligent beings who have created tools so powerful that we're forgetting how to doubt them. We stand at a unique moment in human history where the very cognitive shortcuts that helped our ancestors survive, our ability to quickly defer to apparent expertise, have become our greatest vulnerability. We've built a world where thinking for yourself isn't just harder than trusting the machine, it's often seen as arrogant or inefficient. But maybe, just maybe, the most radical act of the 21st century isn't building better AI, it's remembering how to say no to it when our deepest human wisdom tells us something's wrong.
So here's what I want you to do. For the next week, pay attention to every moment when you defer to an automated system. Notice when you follow GPS directions without looking at your surroundings.
Notice when you accept AI recommendations without question. Notice when you trust the algorithm over your own judgment. I'm not asking you to reject technology. I'm asking you to develop a relationship with it based on conscious choice rather than unconscious surrender. If this video made you think differently about the technology in your life, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Because the future of human thinking might literally depend on how many people understand what's really happening in their minds every time they say, "Okay, Google," or "Hey, Siri." And let me know in the comments, have you ever caught yourself following technology's advice even when your gut told you something was wrong? Your stories might help others recognize their own automation bias before it's too late.